Hello, welcome everyone. It's Cindy Silva. I'm here with Zhang. Hi, Chi.
Hi, Cindy.
Hey. And she is in Switzerland, and I'm in the
That's right.
United States. So we're on different time zones, bridging the world for this conversation. And we're going to talk today about the I Ching. And I really love that we're speaking about this eternal wisdom. And I met Chi through a course online that I took, and I just felt she fully embodies the teachings. And this has been a lifetime of exploration for her. And she's a resource for many on this topic. And I'd love for you to share with our listeners, Chi, how you came to the I Ching, how you use it in your life personally, and then we'll talk more professionally about how this is moving into the world through you.
All right. So please interrupt me when you needed to have some other questions to guide me because I can talk, keep on talking.
That's why you're here.
Right. And thank you for embodying the word. I take that as biggest compliment because I think it's, for I Ching's wisdom, it's really difficult to teach. And majority of the teaching is really through the embodiment. So if you got that, register that by coming to my course, then I think that's the biggest compliment I can have. It's the same as coaching. You influence the energy in the space by also embodying certain way of change into the person's life. So this is how at least my interpretation about I Ching. I've been playing with it for years, half of my life, and how I Ching came to my life. Of course, it's my part of my roots. I'm native Chinese, so it's very dear to my heart. But as a young Chinese coming overseas to pursue, study, you can imagine at that time, like 20 something years ago, I wasn't being able to appreciating it as I appreciate now. At that time, I was really thirsty for knowledge, thirsty for, like the Western, wow, that's a big world of like marketing, business, and, the whole world just opened up for me. And just so you know, my half of a career was in business. And then as all the people are experiencing midlife transition, then I discovered my true passions with people, understanding how to work with team and how to make changes touches people's life and do the transformations, as I also do constantly with myself. So when I switched the career, then I also organically pick up I Ching and welcomed it truly in my life because I carried I Ching around. And maybe you also heard from the course, I got a book gifted from my uncle as my cultural roots. It was more a symbol of my, reminding me you're still Chinese, don't forget me, don't forget your roots at that time. More than anything, I can benefit from it. But only when I really working with coaching, then at the beginning, it was an instrument that helped me to connect to my roots, to understand, what is the wisdom from my cultural background. After I have understood and deeply intrigued by Jungian depth psychology, then was also triggered by understanding from beautiful book Jung's dreams, reflections, and I think symbols. I forgot the name of the book, but almost like in his own biography. And then in that, he also mentioned his own attraction to Eastern wisdom, also mentioned I Ching. Then got discovered that, he wrote a foreword for Wilhelm's translation for I Ching. Or by chance, I have I Ching, a Chinese, original text, right? Of course, that text is also a translation by the modern scholars and how they translated about it. But then I got digged into it, and then I thought, wow, it's profound, but it's also at the same time pretty boring to read, to be frank. And then I was confronted with this realization that Western, also the Jung's ability to explain concept is fascinating for me. It can make it so simple and easy to understand our, internal world. While I Ching is all about this mystical understanding about figuring out the universe. And I deeply believe I got the concept that whatever happened outside is the same time it's a mirror of our internal universe. But how am I going to make it more easy to understood by people? First of all, how does it even pass my own threshold of understanding? So then I start to play with it. I thought that those 64 hexagrams, a lot of people or in the tradition in China has been used mainly for like divination, predicting future. Itself, it has a functionality because it's I Ching is a book, trying to understand the change, and it's beyond the words. It taps into the deep source of unknown. However, being my own interest rooted in the empowering part of the equation, that how can I use this knowledge to, or not, actually, I shouldn't frame it as knowledge, but wisdom to empower me to tame all the emotions aroused by the whatever daily challenges happen to me. How can I restore my inner peace? How can I tap into the unknown, not from a fear place, but from a courageous place, to really lean into that discomfort with the faith, with the trust that I know what I can do in small steps. Meanwhile, trust the unknown. So that's a place I was kind of finding my relationship with I Ching, how to use it as an instrument rather than a predictory, divination tool.
Yeah.
Only, let's put into this way. Yeah. So let me just
Beautiful.
pause there. See what
Yeah.
that's
Thank
in the
you.
direction with you.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
material. I could go in a lot of directions with that. One thing when you mentioned Jung and Jungian psychology and Carl Jung writing the foreword to Wilhelm's book,
Right.
when I think of Jung, I think of how much he talked about synchronicity. And when I think
That's
of the I Ching, I think of how much synchronicity I experience when I consult it or when I engage with it. So I feel like there's a connection there to when we open ourselves to the mystery, if you will, or the unknown, that that intelligence is so interconnected that synchronicities happen because of the connection it has to all things, right? It's not linear and
absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
timeless. So
Yeah.
there's that piece. And one of the things that you brought to my awareness in the course was this term situational awareness, where we can use the I Ching to
Right.
gain more situational awareness on any situation we're dealing with. I've certainly benefited from just that term, like it really helps to simplify and focus the whole relationship I have with this field, and what my attraction to it is, always trying to get more clarity around what can be elusive. Like there's something wanting to be known and I can feel it in my field, but it's kind of slippery and tricky, and this tool creates that situational awareness where you can get a little focus on it, and as you focus on something it gets more clear, and then you can make use of that information and apply it and make it practical, which is another piece I like about your teachings, is the practicality and the application of this wisdom.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm also a leadership coach. In that context, I'm dealing with a lot of leaders or young leaders, female leaders or male leaders, and doesn't matter their gender or which stage they are. But in life stage, that or similar common pattern is that people start with a certain, you can say, certain talent or certain expressed talent, manifested talent that was useful for certain situation. Say someone was, raised in a family that was very much promoting the masculine energy, that you need to show your talent, make yourself visible, go for the goal, So that was very much useful in a lot of situations. It helps you to achieve what bring you to where you are. But when they reach a certain stage, for instance, they have a bigger span of control, they have more teams come, bigger teams to manage, they cannot rely on that dominant or forceful or, like pace setting leadership style. The situation demands them to switch to a different, or at least use more instrument in their leadership style to deal with people, because you're not anymore dealing with tasks, you're dealing with people. People are complex energy bundles, so to speak. How you motivate different profiles of people, and it requires more than knowledge. Almost like it requires your sensitivity and sensibility about understanding their energy, what taps into that. That requires you not only use your forehand, which is always going forward, but sometimes many of the situations require you to take a back seat and use more listening, which use more, receptive energy, creating a nourishing environment for a team to thrive, instead of like being always a visionary, dominating, setting the goal kind of leadership style. So that kind of dance, so what served you before until a certain point doesn't serve you anymore. That's what I call bottleneck. And that's also the stage come in for you to go back to your cocoon, maybe go through a transformation and shred some skins, like then the new self has to be born. That you could be born from this paternal stage of goal striving to more well-balanced self, like integrating the motherly nourishing side and fatherly goal-guiding side to be more well-balanced self. And that's where the situational awareness comes in, that, okay, then I have both. I don't lose sight of both. I have both in me. I can do this, A, and I can also do B. Whether do A or B, depending on the situation and depending on the people I'm facing, I'm dealing with. And that what situation needs what, then if you really peel down to the energy level, which is invisible, it's about how your energy is going to match with the situation you are in. Right. Whatever you do there, if the energy is matching what is demanded by the situation, then you really, your leadership is effective. And if it's non-matching, that's energy exactly opposite or destructive for the situation, then your leadership is not effective. And Yi Jing's term will be fortunate or unfortunate. It doesn't bring the prediction of the future that you're doomed or you're gonna be lucky. But actually, if you translate into our own internal wisdom, is that, okay, doing this is right time, right, with the right energy, with the right dose or not, what kind of effect it will have. I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, it is. It brings up again a lot, like as you're speaking, it's making me aware of how collectively our human race is going through a transition, right? Where we've been very much yang driven to consume and produce, and we've come to the end of that, where it's not sustainable anymore, and we're having to make some decisions that are more, as you mentioned, leaning towards receptive and listening and gathering new information to move in to a new cycle and a new season. And we all are in different seasons and cycles of our life, depending on our age. And I know I'm moving into a different cycle in my life that has to do in the 5-element system of moving towards the metal element, which is more about paring down and decline in the sense of letting go of what's no longer useful and simplifying. And so I've been, witnessing how that's just a nice, organic kind of movement happening in my life. It's not easy, when you've identified with one way, right? Like you're saying in leadership, there's different levels of development, and something worked for so long and now it's not working anymore. So you have to be open to new information and integrate that new information and then move forward, as you say. Um, things, certain patterns are leading to more superior or fortunate outcomes, and other patterns would lead to more inferior or unfortunate outcomes. So yeah, it's
Exactly.
all about being not only receptive to the information, but adaptive to changing how you see yourself, how you show up, um, in relationship to life in general, but to the moment, and the pressure for change is on us. Yeah, the
Yeah.
pressure to
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, and also I sometimes also face a lot of situation when people are dealing with changes. Like, let's use your example. You say I'm at the stage dealing with my metal energy. Yeah? I don't know what that means, but I know in Chinese tradition we also have this five elementals, and Yi Jing is eight different energy
Mhm.
forces that could cause. You could be a bit like forehand on this one, and some of the energy might be very unfamiliar to you, right? But when people are dealing with changes, it was like almost they have to go through kind of like, where's my identity? Because the thing that you originally has been your strength, now you are confronted with, I have to change it. Otherwise, it blocks me, it become a
Right.
liability in my life, right?
Yeah.
But then when you're dealing with that, it's very painful. And sometimes even cause you existential fears, sort of like if I do not have it, then who am I? The new thing hasn't been really formed.
Yeah.
But I think there is misconception there, some sort of a change, meaning that something that you were familiar with or good at has to be let go. I mean, that letting go is sort of like, how do we interpret that letting go? Is that disappear from your life, or is that kind of letting go of the attachment to it? So that's also what allowed this wu wei, this concept.
Mhm.
A lot of people interpret it as, oh, wu wei means non-action, action, non-action. So that he's really promoting non-action. No, but actually Lao Tzu's wu wei means that no deliberate action. You still can do action. You still can use your metal, but not to the extent you attach to it, like what it originally blinded you. So the subtle difference is that whatever served you may still serve you, go further, but pay attention, don't let it have you. But you are still the master. It's only your instrument, your talent, your strengths. It's an instrument you possess
Mhm.
to serve some higher purpose, to serve whatever you come to this earth to do. But do not let that have you, the energy have you. You have the energy, but not let it
Right.
have you. Yeah.
Right. Right.
And
So
you still can do a lot with it. So do not lose it and then go to the other extreme. Right. So then people sometimes in that kind of a transition, they often get yes, they embrace a change, but they lose themselves. That's also not the result. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yes, exactly. It's integration, like the evolutionary process of transcend and include. So you transcend the limitation of the old, but you include what's useful and everything gained, as you
Yeah.
integrate what's the next phase or what's new. I'm so glad you
Yeah.
brought in the 8 trigrams. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a big part of the course that I've taken with you, and um, the I Ching is based on 8 trigrams and the 64 hexagrams, a combination of these elements. Um,
Right.
so yeah, where elements like there's basically in the West, the four elements, fire, air, earth, and water. And then in the Chinese system, they're a little bit different with metal and wood. And then with the I Ching, there's 8 of them. So it gets a little bit more diverse. And like you're saying, we may just be predisposed to leaning towards being more of one of those trigrams or elements than another, and kind of weak in another area, right? And
Right,
it's about
right.
really being willing, even though we might be programmed and conditioned to lean in a certain area direction, that at some point in our life, in order to be balanced, we have to integrate where we're not as developed and bring in that element more and open ourselves to understand that and how it's wanting to integrate into our life and our decisions and so forth. So
Right.
would you like to share a little bit about each of those trigrams now, or is there another direction you'd like to go with
Well, I don't know
conversation?
whether that kind, because that could take another hour to go into each of them. But I think at the helicopter level, one thing that is quite important, what you touch about,
Hmm?
doesn't matter whether it's 5 elementals or different elementals that in Chinese language, or is it 8 different energy forces. The key point is that to be kind of intuitively aware of, what those energy represent for you, and that those energy, each of them has a functionality, and they are not separated, they're interconnected, a bit like, like the water feeds the wood and the wood feeds the earth, and there is an ecosystem there.
Yeah,
Missing one, you just need to know whatever system language you learn. But if something is missing, how does it has impact on that little ecosystem? It's a bit like in the forest. If you cut down the tree, you have big impact on that micro ecosystem, the balance, and somewhere you have to pay the price,
yeah,
right? So and what I like about speaking about those nature's language, 5 elemental, 8 energy forces, is because they are from nature, and the nature is the best teacher for us. And I'm passionate about I Ching is because there are so many other way or tools for wisdom that, and Jung has been also very fascinated about archetypes, right? For
yeah,
me, those eight forces are nature's natural archetypes that are
yeah,
pre-existing before the human being.
yeah,
And if we are living in this earth, we are breathing the wind, we are looking at the living in the mountain or looking at the lake, and between heaven and earth, no matter whether you have a lake or or mountains, but at least everybody shares between heaven and earth, yin and yang, live the human being. So that means whatever we do, we embody the nature's energy. And if we understand how those energy are interplay in their dynamic, how they drive the changes, then we deeply understand our human nature. And that's the purpose.
right, right.
And
That's
I'm currently working on a course to really working on at energy level, helping people to understand, like what you say, that one side is where you I'm sorry, so I'm still recovering from my flu.
hmm,
One side is to come to understand that what are the imbalance in your own energy embodiment, what forces may be a little bit suppressed. It's not mean that you don't have it, it's just you haven't learned to
yeah,
manifest
it's
it
dormant. Yeah.
yes, it's dormant. So
Mhm.
it's such a pity. If it's dormant, meaning there are some situations that you're not able to respond to effectively. I
Mhm.
mean, that if you look at those 8 forces, quickly go through it. The heaven, the earth, the fire, the water, the wind, the lake, the mountain, and the thunder. All those forces are present in our nature, and none of them can be missed. If you miss them, we have a problem. You're probably not even existing. So nature has this wonderful platform, say those 8 forces. I don't discriminate. They're all present in different parts of the world. Some are more than the other, but they are all finding their place and functionality to prosper us, right? In human nature too. So if we deeply believe that, we have a lot of potential to harvest from our dormant energy. So that's one set. The other set is what I'm studying, or will be also revealed in that course, is to study the liability. It doesn't mean that if you have energy which are played into your strength, it's your asset. It could also become the liability, so-called in Jung's language called shadow. So give you an example. If someone is very good at feminine energy, the earth energy, embody earth, meaning listening, nourishing, supporting, and building unconditional love, bearing through things, right? Like earth does. Beautiful. However, if you play it too much, or if it is too much, and regardless of situation, you always do so, that could also flip to the opposite side. It could also cause us, that this person could be overbearing, like exhaustion will come, like pleasing, like, that you lose yourself because that's too much of manifesting. And that's what I call will go into the liability part.
Yes, that makes sense. So that receptivity of that earth, that yin, all yin in that hexagram, right? That trigram is a porousness. And if you're too porous and you absorb too much, it's overwhelming, and then there cannot be any function anymore, right? Because it loses its integrity. Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because this is the whole idea is with the I Ching, the Book of Changes, is about balancing the polarity of yin and yang. And so each of the hexagrams is 6 lines, and each of those lines is either yin or yang, solid or broken. And so for those that are new to the I Ching, and so I wanted to bring this up with you, and we've had a couple private conversations, and I always wanted to bring it up, but it never came up, and it's coming up now, and I hope it's okay to go here with there seems to be a little riddle in the I Ching for me, and it's at the very end. So there's 64 hexagrams. The first is all heaven, and the second is all earth. But when you go through them in a linear way, you come to 63 and 64. And 63 is called after completion, and 64 is called before completion. And those hexagrams have a balance of yin and yang. There's a yang yin, yang yin, yang yin, and vice versa. The 64 before completion has fire over water, and 63 is after completion, and it has the water over the fire. And in the Qigong tradition that I've studied, the message is always bring the water down and the fire up. And that's because the nature, as you would say, taught, is that the nature of fire is to rise, and the nature of water is to sink, the yin and the yang. And in the 64th hexagram, they're moving apart from each other. Yeah. Because the fire is above and it's rising, and the yin is below and it's sinking. And when you flip those, and the fire is below and the water is above, then they're moving towards each other, and there's a dynamic there. So I've just wondered about that term after completion with the 63rd hexagram being about just what you say, like putting these elements in the right context in relationship to the other elements so that they're not to the extreme and not serving a purpose and not relating, but they're put in relationship in a way where the natural movement gets harmonized by that position and relationship. I'm not really explaining it the way I would want to feel clear, but do you understand what I'm saying about that?
Right, right. And
Fire
maybe
over water.
it's clear if you ask a question on behalf of your audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
ask
that
the question.
this intrigued you. So what's a question that you
Yeah.
want?
Well, the question goes back to that, and you explained this in a different way, but the question goes back to why in the sequence of 64, the 64th hexagram is not called after completion. It's the 63rd hexagram that's called after completion, and the 64th is called before completion when it's actually the end of the sequence.
Right. I think this is the genius design of the I Ching. Whoever arranged that order, this is you should look at it as almost like a myth by itself. I Ching is telling you the myth of the universe or myth of our human being, basically. And you could explode it to that magnitude, or you could look at really at the granular, under the microscope. And if you look at the yin and yang, the Tai Chi sign, which is half black, half white, we call it the black and white fishes, right? It really intertwines together, dance together. So it gives the sensation that, what drives the change, also what drives the advancement is the dance between the two energy. So the energy is existing there is because it stirs interchange. The interchange propels, the change. So the easiest way to understand, in order for them to interchange, they have to relate to each other. That's why, if they move to the opposite direction, then nothing will be furthered.
Right.
However, that's just temporary status. The I Ching is telling, don't worry, don't worry. And also another thing, what I Ching is telling is that be humble, because like we humans like to see the stories start from long time ago, fairy tales, and then happy ending, right?
Yeah.
We are repeating our own narratives. Happy ending, we all want the happy ending, right? We'll feel angry if the ending is like going nowhere, or someone is going back to square zero. It was like, what is next, like it's a bit like a Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, like the hero slay the dragon, confronted with his own demon, then reconciliation, come back, and become a different hero. But then the hero doesn't end there. He will endlessly go for the Lord of Ring second, the Lord of Rings third, and the Harry Potter has so many episodes, right? So that's in a sense, it's like the mini cycle. It just repeats a cycle. And you need, this is what the genius about I Ching, you need this 64 hexagram as a before completion, so that it can bring back to the cycle number one, which is called the creative. If the 64 is after completion, then we don't need the creative. We're done. We're okay. We're happy ending. End. So the I Ching is telling us, no, it's never ending story. Even if we think we end, but our next generation will go further, start from square zero, deploy their creative to do whatever they set out to do. And even if generation after generation repeating the cycle, even our universe are orienting toward before completion. Don't know whether you kind of feel like that. So it tells the tale at such a universe magnitude, but also tells the tale in a way that we human in our little life we can relate to. Everything is manifested in this way.
Yeah.
Because it's a cyclic. And that sets a very big difference between linear way of thinking and cyclic way of thinking.
Yeah, I've seen this image of the Ouroboros with the snake eating its tail, right? The beginning and the end are one. And what I hear you saying is that with the I Ching, called the Book of Changes, it's about balancing the extremes, and that the what I hear you saying is that balance is not static. You're never complete with balance because things are always changing. So you're always having to adapt. And when you think you've come to completion, there's a change again in the way nature is moving through the cycles and seasons. And so we're having to adapt and start over. So a new cycle. And so it's just realizing that we never get there. Wherever there is, there's no end. Yeah.
No,
To
exactly.
creation and evolution and
Exactly.
yeah.
It's our own creation myth in a way, right?
Yeah.
So then,
But the I Ching does provide a structure for experiencing the never ending, right? Because it's almost like you have to have some kind of a container for the infinite, to relate to the infinite. So there's
right.
the structure.
And it's kind of terrifying. What if the end is no meaning? Like what are we going to
What if
so
there's no
it's
purpose?
psychological terrifying. Yeah. But that's a myth we are living in. Look, all the life start with life, but orienting toward death. After midlife, basically everybody's psychological, whatever manifesting our life is preparing for death.
Yeah.
Like it or not. Right? But how can we orient in such a meaningless life, or so to speak, between the quotation, meaningless life, almost getting to the nihilism, right? That okay, what's the point? But if you look at the flowers in the nature, they know they only have a season to live. That like maybe some of flower only opens at night and then died. But nonetheless, they give all the energy and they are fulfilling their purpose just to open, to show their beauty, even if there is no eyes to admire it. And that's the meaning, how do you find meaning in a kind of sort of like a rationalized way of thinking is like meaningless, that's probably what the whole tale is inviting us to, I like your word container, to self-setting the container for our own psychological myth.
Yeah. And then at the same time, there's this eternal, immortal aspect of our existence, right? That isn't born and doesn't die, but yet the individual experience that consciousness is having through us does have a finite cycle.
Yeah.
So,
It has been since we don't know whether will be immortal. I don't know this word we invented as well as a human being, right? And we pursue sort of it has to be some form of immortalness. We otherwise I feel so, like ancient Chinese alchemist that they all go for this immortality, but on the other hand, from different perspective, that immortality in a broader sense, like our conversation has happened, itself is a fact. It's immortal in that way that this moment of exchange has been registered somewhere in the quantum physical universe. If we believe in parallel universe or not, but that's how real it can get. But if we want to hang on it, attach to it, say, many hundreds years, who even bothers to remember this? then you get different spectrum of anxiety. What, have I even existed or something like that, right? So this is a much bigger topic. The same topic, almost as well, endless topic about our understanding about time, for instance, and that's probably too big to find a place in
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
conversation. But what's
I
very
think that
interesting, what's
having the,
yeah,
the immortal nature I'm speaking about is its ability to have a dual consciousness, that we know there's an immortal nature and a
mm,
mortal aspect, right? And it's the whole balance of the yin and yang, right? Is that
mm,
we're trying to navigate the existence of a physical finite experience, and also acknowledge an infinite presence, intelligence, and consciousness that's experiencing through
yeah,
the
yeah,
finite. Um, so yeah, we could have another conversation about all that, because that's big. And I'm not sure if you want to go here or not, but I just want to acknowledge that
yeah.
it's Chinese New Year this weekend, and
That's true. That's true.
wonder
Yes.
if you
Right.
celebrate
Tomorrow.
and if you track um, the year of the
Well,
dragon coming in. If you have anything you want to share from your
actually, I was
culture.
born in Year of Dragon. My
You
husband.
were your husband,
Yes.
my
Yes. Yes.
husband too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he's going to be 60.
Oh, yeah. My husband too.
Yeah.
60. I'm younger, so I'm 12 years
We
younger
both
than.
married wood dragons.
Yeah. How wonderful. Cool. But give some red to him, like
Okay.
wearing something red. That's Chinese tradition. Usually we say that if you're born dragon's year and it's dragon's year, it's going to be quite challenging because it's like your cycle, the starting of the cycle again, right? Your cycle.
Uh,
So, but I'm living in Switzerland. There is no atmosphere for Chinese New Year. And it was my
right.
mom and dad reminded me, tomorrow is Chinese New Year's Eve. Oh. But my family, me and my husband and my sons are going to go on a holiday because it's a carnival week here.
Mm-hmm.
So we are traveling to Sri Lanka. It's
Oh,
a yes to have a few days, 1 week break there. So I'm very
beautiful.
much looking forward to. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've not been to Asia yet, but I have an invitation to come to Thailand in the end of this year. So I'm looking forward to. Yeah, I've always had an interest in the Orient and always attracted to Oriental wisdom. And um, I don't know where that interest comes from. I don't have a drop of Oriental blood in my body, but there's
Maybe
some, there's
you never know.
something.
Deep down, we are all connected.
Yeah, there's
Maybe
something about it.
your previous life was from
Yeah,
East.
yeah, who knows? Anyway, it attracted me to you and taking your course on the Young platform, and I'd like to give you an opportunity to share your website. And I know you have a couple websites.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like people to know about what you're up to and how they can engage with you?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm not very much shouting out. I'm poor at marketing. I believe in energy, like attractions, and people come to me that they will find me. I'm also not hiding away. But thank you for inviting me. And for people who are interested in I Ching, then if you have a like sort of challenging problem that you would like use it as opportunity to understand yourself or finding solution or finding containment for your psychological meltdown, or I wouldn't say meltdown, sometimes people just curious to understand your own emotion. At least for me, that was very uh, useful. I use it all the time. It's a tool that I invented or made myself.
Hmm.
And then you can go to the website called www.yijingcompass.com.
I
So
Ching
it's a
Compass.
yes, I Ching Compass. It's free to register. You can register, then you can use the tool, almost like a self-coaching tool,
Hmm.
using the I Ching content to understand whatever the issues or problems that are currently emotionally having a significance on you. And the more you use it, the more you use those lenses to understand, almost like you are nurturing an inner dialogue with yourself, the more freer, or the better you are equipped with choices, I would say so. That's at least how I have been dealing with it. So that's one resource. The other resource is called yijingwell.com. Then currently the live courses that it was not, it wait until the next cycle, but feel free to indicate your interest to me. Then I will put you on the list for the next course that comes. That's for those who are interested in learning more structurally about I Ching and I Ching's wisdom. And soon, I hope that in a few months' time, I'm able to introduce the energy mastery course that I'm now working on. And that will be a course to help people to understand pretty much what we talked about, the energy fingerprint of yourself, and how can you bring more balance into it and boost your energy assets while keep in check your energy liabilities, and so that you can live more emotionally wealth rather than depletion. So that's what I'm currently, probably sounds more abstract, but when we are coming there, that I'll put more information on that www.yijingwell.com, that website.
Oh, okay. And I will put all the notes in the description and links to your site for people that are interested.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very kind of you.
Is there anything you'd like to share in closing about our conversation, or with our listeners who might be interested in pursuing more information about the I Ching?
I would say start to live wisdom from nature.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot to mention, in the yijingcompass.com, there is a page that I consistently put on. In China, we have different calendar. Mm-hmm. We have 24 different, we call it the climate sections. Within that, then we have total 72 microclimate. And that 72 microclimate is very much connected to the nature's wisdom, that how people observe nature changes, how animal reacts to the energy shifts. They are much more intuitive than human being, by the way. So you can check it out, that, subscribe to the newsletter. I tried now to every sort of like micro season, I will make a little writing about living the wisdom of the nature. Mm-hmm. And after a few episodes, I find myself, we talk about the situational awareness, right? So the best way to be healthy, both emotionally and physically, is to synchronize with the energy shift in the nature. Mm-hmm. There is a whole body of knowledge about Chinese medicine, about physical well-being, but emotional well-being as well, that if you synchronize with the nature, what it demands us to do. For instance, we just passed the section called the bigger cold, the small cold, big cold, and we are coming to the spring section. So then the energy shifted from reflective, looking back, nourishing yourself, having time out, that, connecting to yourself, to creative, to make a small creativity seen and making your voice heard. And it was really beautiful for myself to experience it, writing those, you can say blogs. And it's my instrument to connect to the nature's energy, be super aware of the season we are living in. And so, for instance, we just passed the threshold of this early spring section, the section that supposed to be the piece, the hexagram piece, that young energy below, the yin energy above.
6, is it 6?
The number
11.
12, 11, sorry, 11. So that itself is also like if you study the number 11 and number 12, which is a peace and stagnation, similar like before completion, after completion, number 63 and 64 has a similar meaning because the stagnation follows the peace.
Right.
You know, both of them have equal number of yang and yin energy.
Right.
But right, so then and it itself is also interesting to contemplate about. Anyway, so then we are moving towards the hexagram called peace, that in the spring that the yang energy need to surge. So I find that, boy, and since 2 weeks my creativity is just like a, you know, like booming like spring flowers. But that thanks
Love
to
that.
right, and thanks to the period in the winter time, I've been also caught in flu and etc. But I consciously took time to nourish myself, do less and be more, and so that now I felt time is right now. Now I have a lot. I can boost in my doing energy.
Yeah, you brought something up important that I hadn't considered before, and that is like whatever we put our attention on expands. Yeah. So when we're paying attention to the natural cycles and the rhythm and flow of what's naturally rising and falling, and it helps us put our attention on what's rising. And so it's already rising. And then as we give our attention to it, it expands even more. So yeah, it's the interest and attention aligned with the natural cycles that really brings things into bloom. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's good to have the awareness of where to place our interest and attention. It's not like it's not already there, right? It's already happening because it's a natural cycle. But when we give our attention to it, then we can support what's emerging naturally in the right environment. It's kind of like when it's spring and we plant, seeds in the garden, we're doing it with the nice right timing of nature. We're not doing it putting the seeds in the ground during the fall and expecting them to grow. So I like that you brought that forward, and I'm thrilled that you're really experiencing a blossoming in your creativity because we're all benefiting from it. I am particularly because I'm engaging in your classes. So I really want to thank you for your expertise, your time, and your commitment to lead young leaders and leaders in general, and supporting leadership in the world in a fortunate direction.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Cindy.
My pleasure. And thank you all for tuning in and listening. I appreciate your interest and support as well.
Yes. Okay.